Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a very interesting situation regarding Justin Trudeau leaking on purpose a hot mic of him saying that Donald Trump and the United States want to absorb and basically annex Canada. Now, we're going to go over why he's doing this. It's mainly based off of the liberal boost that we've seen when it comes to the polls in Canada. About 2-3 months ago, it was very obvious conservatives were going to get an overwhelming majority in that government when the next election up comes, but Trudeau announces he is resigning, and you also did have Donald Trump threatening Canada with these tariffs, and it's become this weird dynamic in Canada to where it's pushing the country maybe back to the left. Now, my opinion as an American on this is I really don't care. If Canada wants to keep voting liberal, they can do that. They can destroy their own country. That's fine. It's not up to Trump to babysit these people and to get them in line to vote properly. If Donald Trump talks about putting tariffs on Canada and that somehow forces people to vote left wing, that's their prerogative. But you can see just a little visual representation of what's been happening when Donald Trump entered the White House on January 20th. The conservative majority was around 92% chance. And now at this point, it's all the way down to a 62% chance. And people are saying it's because Trump is trying to annex or take over Canada, and it's turning people, and also I guess Trudeau resigning, it's turning people back to the Liberal Party, which honestly makes no sense considering you would think it would galvanize people with more conservative support when your country is being threatened. You wouldn't go to the liberal side. The liberal side is all about open borders, and they think, I mean, if somebody migrates from India in a day, they're Canadian. They become Canadian. So why would you turn away from the conservative majority when your country is being threatened? That's the whole point. They want to be Canadians. But this is the whole weird dynamic with Canada. So that's kind of the backstory to this. And then Trudeau, on purpose, you can see this explosive Trudeau hot mic was a scam. Fox News confirms it was deliberate. Trudeau wants Canadians to panic over the 51st state. And again, it's very obvious as to why. Right when Trump entered the White House, when there was no threat of it or very little threat, conservative majority had a 92% chance in their upcoming election, and it is falling. Again, it doesn't make a lot of sense if you're a Canadian to say, oh, I guess the line of thinking is, well, Trump is conservative, so we don't like him, so now let's just vote liberal again. But it doesn't make sense based off of the viewpoints of the conservatives and the liberals when it comes to how they view Canadians and keeping their country together and keeping it strong. You would want a conservative in office to kind of stem off Trump and say, we're Canadians, we're in this together, we're going to galvanize around ourselves. What Canadians are doing right now is a more nationalist, Republican, conservative type view, but they're shifting back liberal. And again, I guess it's because Trump and they hate him, and because Trump's conservative now, and they think the Conservative Party in Canada is in bed with Trump. That's probably what it is. But obviously, Trudeau has an incentive to set up this fake hot mic of him saying that, oh, Trump wants to absorb Canada and basically annex it. So let's go ahead and listen to a little bit of this Fox segment.
Fixes our southern border, our neighbors to the north are really worried that the U.S. will annex Canada. Listen to what Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said in a hot mic moment.
Trump has it in mind that one of the easiest ways of doing that is absorbing our country. And it is a real thing. In my conversation with him.
So you could see Trudeau says the thing that Trump wants to do is absorbing our country, and it is a real thing in my conversations with him.
All right. Well, it seems like this has been bothering Trudeau for quite a while now, because here's what he said last month.
I started to suggest, well, maybe there could be a trade for Vermont or California for certain parts. He immediately decided that it was not that funny anymore, and we moved on to a different conversation. So this isn't.
Well, now the new thing is they're talking about taking Alberta and Saskatchewan, the two provinces within Canada that have the most natural resources, and they're both conservative. I'm not saying that's going to happen. Obviously, Alberta and Saskatchewan would want to do it, and maybe if the Liberal Party wins again, they would want to. I mean, I don't know, but there is some serious incentive for Canadians to be part of the United States, especially when you think about them. And this is where it kind of gets weird with Trump. And I'm just saying, when it comes to the dynamic of this, Trudeau leaking this, it seems to be an effort to boost the fear of Trump taking over Canada, whether or not Trump wants to do it, or even if it's realistic. I've said it's not realistic. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Greenland is going to happen. And Trump has already made massive headway when it comes to the Panama Canal. And unfortunately, nobody knows about it. The media doesn't discuss it. But Trump has stymied, and Marco Rubio did as well when he visited Panama, the connection between China and Panama through the belt and road initiative that China has, which is how they exude their soft power over other countries. And so that's really good what Trump's done with the Panama Canal already. People don't know. It's sad. I think he's going to get Greenland. It's going to take a little bit of time. The European Union and a lot of those countries in Europe now are being turned by the liberal media within Europe against Trump and against the United States. And basically it's this thing to where they want to send troops like NATO troops, which is basically NATO is American. It's absurd, but they're going to send troops to defend against the United States taking over or annexing Greenland. It makes no sense at all. We are NATO. We could just have Greenland tomorrow if we want to, because we're going to threaten to leave NATO. And you know what? If you want to lose the number 1 biggest superpower in the world over Greenland, which has 57,000 people, you can go ahead and do that. No. We'll create a military alliance with the CCP. We're going to have a nice military alliance with them and with Russia, and we'll see how well the European Union's power looks after we do that. So understand these people, these countries have zero authority over the United States and what we do, especially when it comes to taking Greenland. But this situation, whether or not Trump can do this, for Canadians, undeniably it would be positive if they became a territory, not a state. Now, Trump wants them as a state, and it's the Groundhog Day thing, which I always say, and other people, we realize this. If you add them as a state, it's very hard for conservatives to win. It just doesn't make sense. These people are all liberal. Even, you could say, even the conservative people, some of the conservative people there would be liberal Americans based on where we're at. A lot of the conservatives in Canada are more, they'd be considered independents in the United States. It's just a much more leftist culture in Canada. That's like the idea of saying, well, if Canada doesn't want to do this, maybe we just take Saskatchewan and Alberta, and then very likely Quebec would become independent themselves and it would destroy the country. But I'm not saying that's going to happen. Maybe if the Canadians decide to vote for the Liberal Party again, even after Trudeau had a record 20% approval rating, I mean, it's that bad. Like, that's crazy, a Liberal to have a 20% approval rating in Canada. They just see these numbers. Trudeau and the Liberal Party see these numbers and they say, hey, this is working. If we keep fear-mongering people about Trump taking us over, look at this. We were dead in the water. Liberal support with NDP support, they're sitting at they're still sitting very low. I mean, they're at 8%, but it is interesting to see this, and they're trying to siphon off some of the seats when it comes to this next election in Canada through the fear-mongering. I mean, the thing about it is, like, the actual topic itself, does Trump want Canada? He does keep saying, yes, he wants Canada. I mean, he does keep saying that. Like 2 days ago he said it. And he's been saying it, because originally it was a joke, but then at a certain point it's like, all right, the day he became officially president on the 20th of January, he said he wanted Canada. He said it several times after. So this is something they can legitimately fearmonger. I don't think it's likely going to happen, but the tariffs are a real thing. Okay, Trump has talked about ending the income tax, and that's $2 trillion in revenue the U.S. is going to be losing. How do you replace that? Well, it's through tariffs. That's why Trump is announcing all these different tariffs. And it's also through cutting government spending to a degree to where you don't have to make up the full $2 trillion. Maybe it's only $1.5 trillion. But that's what it comes down to if you're able to do that. And it would be an amazing boost to the economy if Trump was able to somehow eliminate income tax, give people more disposable income, and it would inject more money into the economy. And that's exactly what Trump wants. So the dynamic of Trudeau coming out and leaking this on purpose really is just they see that their party is completely sunk. But this recent development of Trump supposedly wanting to annex Canada, which, again, the dynamic of it does not make any sense. If you're a conservative, Canada is left wing. They would have, if they became a single state, because let's be honest, that's what Trump is proposing. And maybe it's just the lower provinces and the territories stay territories, which is probably what would happen, honestly, if you just wanted to make them one state. The issue is they would get similar electoral votes to California. So like 52 electoral votes for that single state, which would be Canada. And that's all going, those are liberal electoral votes. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's why I'm surprised nobody says, Mr. President, you're giving liberals an extra 50 electoral votes. This is probably not good. And maybe Trump would say, well, they'll be more conservative if we give them certain things and the Canadian dollar has gotten destroyed and maybe they can exchange one-for-one rate with the USD. And maybe that would make them more right-wing. I know it's just a much more liberal culture there in Canada, so I don't really know how that would work, honestly. But it's very obvious Trudeau is certainly hitting Canadians with the fear-mongering of Trump annexing Canada because it is good for the Liberal Party in Canada. The polls reflect a upgrade in Liberal support after the Trump situation, which again, hypothetically doesn't make any sense. If you were to galvanize and say, we're all Canadians, we love this country, we want to keep it, we don't want anyone invading us or taking us over, that's a conservative nationalist point of view. That's not a liberal point of view. A liberal point of view is, yes, the immigrant from Zimbabwe that just came into the country 3 hours ago is now Canadian. So see, there's a difference there, but suddenly the liberal, and again, I think it's because Trump's conservative and they think the Conservative Party in Canada is like endorsed Trump, and so they're kind of viewing that as a negative, but their viewpoints don't make any sense. If you wanted to galvanize and say, we're Canadians, this matters, this means something to us, we love our flag, we love our country, that's a conservative Republican point of view. It's not a liberal point of view. Liberals think that really white people are all colonizers and Canada shouldn't even exist in the way it does because of what the British did, and America should not exist, and Native Americans should still control it. That's the liberal point of view. So this really doesn't make any sense. But again, they're just angry at Trump, so they equate that to Republican. But either way, guys, that's just the situation when it comes to Trudeau. This was on purpose. Trudeau leaking this. He's trying to instill fear because it looks better for the poll numbers when it comes to the Liberal Party trying to make a comeback. I don't think it's going to work. It looks like it's got a very low % chance of working. Even if you look at this, it seems like the conservative numbers are already going back up. They went all the way down to 53%. Now they're back up. I mean, we still got a little ways until the election there in Canada. People were telling me, I thought the election was in October, but apparently because Trudeau is resigning, it could happen earlier. So either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.